BADM523 on January 27th, office hours. I want to cover a few things regarding the week, what's due, what's going on, answer any questions, and then after those are taken care of, I'd kind of like to continue our discussion from last week and kind of jump into some more examples, a little more advanced into taking information or taking data and creating information out of it. So that's kind of the game plan. I'm also totally not opposed to anybody jumping in also with some examples or requests for examples even. I felt last week, I apologize, I did a lot of lecturing and I'd like to make this a little more interactive if you're comfortable with that. If not, that's no problem either. This is your time. So, all right. Let's see, what's due this week? I'm going to go ahead and I have nothing really to share on my screen quite yet. So let's see, just getting into the class here. All right, so due this week, we have Chapter 3. We also have a quiz and then another video case. So not too much due this week, the same as the first couple weeks. I do see that the groups have gotten a good jump on the case assignments. So I'll start with that. Do you guys have any questions regarding the case assignment for UPS? Not so far? Okay. I see some of the groups, it's kind of interesting. Most of the groups that I deal with in this type of course do the same thing, which is splitting up the questions, which is fine, which is really good. So as long as you have a full understanding of the entire assignment, that's okay. It's also nice, I see some groups are wanting to get it done ahead of time for enough time to review before you submit, so that would be nice as well, especially on me. The less I have to focus on grammar and spelling, the more I can focus on the content, which is really appreciated. So let's see what we got here. Got the lab assignment. I think the case assignment is due next week, and then the lab is following that as well. Have you guys started looking at the lab assignment at all? Not yet? Okay. Yeah, the first one shouldn't be too bad. If you can follow the Excel examples that I'm giving here, this should kind of help you along the lines of that. So, Emily, I see that you took a look. Do you have any questions regarding it? Or is it, hopefully it's straightforward, but I'm certainly, first time I'm actually teaching these particular labs, so I'm totally open for any clarification if needed. Okay, excellent. Okay. Well, good. Again, we go through Chapter 3, which is still continuing on with the foundations of information systems and the histories and so on. I see that people are doing, and I don't hesitate to say I don't think it's a FERPA violation, but I think you guys can see the overall average of grades. You guys are doing fantastic on the quizzes. I know these concepts are pretty straightforward starting from the beginning, but it's some interesting things to learn. I know we have the voice over internet protocol, and last week there was a question on that. But we start getting into some pretty interesting history of the progression of technology going from mainframes all the way up through where we are today. So so I don't like necessarily, I figure you guys can read. If you have any specific questions you might have in regard to the reading, I certainly can answer those, but I don't want to regurgitate those, especially since I did a lecture on the reading as well, so already. But I don't mind clarifying any topics you might have. So if you don't mind, just throw that question out there if you have any. Otherwise, we'll jump in. I did post grades tonight, so you guys are all up to date through week 2. So if you can't see them, let me know. And I'm trying to set up collaborate rooms. I know there was a request for me in the instructor forum to create group collaborates. I don't know if you guys will find value in that. I tried doing that right before this class. It appears I kind of hosed up on how I set up the groups. So it's nice to see that you can access the group discussion forums, but for some reason I can't access the groups when I'm doing the collaborate. I can only access groups I created for previous classes. So I'll see what I did wrong to get that fixed as well. So, all right. Okay, you don't have any from the reading so far. Okay, great. Oh yes, excellent. Glad you find value in that. Good. Yep. So today, on a personal note, it's one of those things. I don't know if you guys have read my bio or anything, but I'm a senior analyst for MINSCU, which is Minnesota State Colleges and Universities, and my job is to gather requirements on developing information systems or software solutions. And have either of you heard of the term agile development? This is something that's really taken off. Oops, and I can see my emails coming up. I'm going to go ahead and drop my emails. Okay. You don't think so? Okay. Yeah, what Agile is, it's a different methodology in how we design technology. We'll cover this later in the class too, but it kind of a little heads up, just so you can kind of get a perspective when we talk about information systems and how these systems actually get built. One of the things we used to do is we used to gather all the requirements, and development wouldn't start until we had everything defined. All the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, even down to, hey, how do we want screen layouts, what colors, what fonts, and everything. We found that that's very cumbersome. Can either one of you guess why that is not so efficient from just from a logical standpoint? So basically, we can't start development until all the requirements are gathered. So all the information is known before we can even move forward. If we think about modern day, what do we want? Especially millennials, right? People don't do their share by the deadline. That's a very true statement. Yep. But what's a trait that we find in millennials? I know probably you guys are millennials, so it's not a diss on millennials or anything, but what's a trait we find in the younger generations? We got to have things when. Exactly. Yep, we got to have things now. When we do a waterfall, we have to wait till everything's defined. Guess what? Most people have changed their mind by the time we start developing. So all that effort is wasted. And not only that, but we can't deliver anything until way down the road. So what happens is we develop what we call an agile method, which means we break up the work into chunks. And so what I do as an analyst is I'm gathering just enough information so our developers can start developing the software. And as they're developing, I'm getting the next set of requirements. And so it's what they call just enough, just in time, meaning that I'm only given just enough information for developers to keep busy so we can get them going right now. So a good example would be, if you think about a website, and this happens to be a project I'm working on right now, I can have the web developers develop the layout of a web screen without even knowing where the data is going to go at this point. So, we're collecting information on a web form, and I don't know what database tables are going to go on. I don't know what the rules are. All I know is this is the general idea of what we're going to collect. So they can start generating that. And so what we do then is before we even start our development, I can actually show the end users, here's what your screen's going to look like. It's actually a screen. It's on the web. It looks like it's just not tied to anything. So that's kind of where we are right now in this project, is trying to understand what the users want, especially when they have like drop-down lists. You think that would be an easy chore, right? What type of student are you going to be? That's one of the questions. Think that's an easy question to ask somebody? One would think so. No, it's not. Okay, if I give you a drop down, then I gave you choices, and I said, what kind of student are you going to be? You're going to say first-time undergrad, first-time graduate student, continuing graduate student. Would that help a little bit more if I gave you selections? So now we think it would get easier, right? No. I got 34 colleges on the phone. That's how many schools are in MNSCU. I cannot get an agreement on the term of graduate student, because what's happening is to you, me, and probably most people who are actually in college, we know that an undergraduate is somebody who's in their first 2 to 4 years of college, right? Well, to a high school student who's filling out an application who may be first generation college, graduate and undergraduate doesn't mean much to them. They think, well, I'm graduating high school, so I will be a graduate student. See where the complexity comes in? So when we talk about defining systems, we got to be very careful that we're not assuming that our end users know what we're talking about. So even with these assignments and stuff like that, it may be straightforward, but what I try to challenge you on is using some critical thinking skills and not assuming. We want to, when we have students completing web forms, we want the least amount of information to get just enough information out of them so we know what to do with them and how to process them. So that's what I was working on today, which is my horrible excuse for why I'm kind of slurring speech and everything. It's just a long day. See, FastFL has, yep. Oh yeah, I think one of you works for USD, right? Oh, I thought one of you did. Okay. All right. I know I got one or two from USD, and for some reason I thought it was one of you, but okay. Okay. I'm not going to give away any secrets from MNSCU. I think I was pretty high level on that one. So, but it's just a challenge. I never thought this is the first time I've been in higher education from on the back end side, on the systems office. I've been in teaching for many years, but going from the back side on the systems office, it doesn't you don't realize just how much we take for granted. So, all right. So any questions before I kind of carry you through some examples of Excel, more how to build out your Excel spreadsheets? Yes, seeing things. In fact, I was told, it was a unique word today, it says, you're not using the vernacular correctly. Vernacular, who uses that word? So simply meaning is I'm still learning how to speak the lingo of higher education. So I was misusing of between majors and programs and all this stuff. I was interchanging them and I shouldn't be. Thanks. So, yep. And so when this course eventually gets towards the upper chapters, we'll start covering the business analysis side of systems. And so this is just kind of a preview of that. So kind of fun stuff. So I'll share things from time to time, just as long as they're relevant to the course. All right. All right, so let me go ahead and pull up the spreadsheet here. I kind of beefed it up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see, I want to share. Okay, whew, that's a close one. How's this for a screenshot? This is some code I'm developing for my software that I have out on the web. So, okay. All right. So now we can see the spreadsheet. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move things around a little bit here. Oh, it's not going to let me move it either. Okay. All right. I got to move my spreadsheet around so I can see if you're asking questions. Otherwise, I can't see when you guys ask a question. All right. So I had a couple columns from last week, and I appreciate you guys kind of interacting last week a little bit here. This goes into the data I created. I went ahead and everything's now hard-coded. It's no longer test data as per se, that I was using all those ran betweens and all the functions to automatically generate data. So I added a salary column so we can do some reporting to maybe show some salaries. We can also, we're looking at age, we're looking at departments and so on. So it's just kind of messing around a little bit with this, kind of beefing up the data so we can have some information that is of value, as you will. So one of the things I want to do is we talk about pivot tables. Have either one of you worked with pivot tables? I think Katie said you had some Excel experience. No? Okay. Some? Okay. I see Emily's typing. All right, while she's typing, there's a difference between a table and a pivot table. And what I do here is I use my data here is this is just called a table format. This allows me to go ahead and, okay, Emily, so when we go demonstrate, we'll ask you the question after we do the first demo. So a regular table, remember I had a bunch of data. You remember we had field 1, just forget the spelling, but just field 2 and field 3. Okay, and then we have whatever for data, and then we highlight this and we can actually insert a table, right? So we can go highlight it, do insert, and we can do table. It'll ask me if my table has headers. I say yes, and it makes a pretty looking thing, just like this right here. So that's a table. And what's nice about tables, especially if you have a later version of Excel, is when you click on it, you can see this table tools. If you click on the design, it allows you, if you want to change your color scheme, it's really simple. Pretty cool, huh? So you can kind of mess around with it like that. You can even you'll mess around with some of the banded columns. This is kind of interesting, huh? So we're actually, the columns are every other line is a different color. That's what that means by banded. This one really doesn't. Kind of neat, huh? Okay, so we want rows banded, but not columns. Or we can do vice versa. So it just helps people be able to follow data as you're going along through here. So if I'm looking at data going up and down, I'd want them banded this way. But most people, we do rows, right? So I'm looking at Morgan here, and I want to see her information. It's a little easier when it's banded, so my eyes can keep track of where I'm at. So that's why we do that. So that's a kind of a quick shot at actually formatting tables. But what we can do is we can create what we call pivot tables. And pivot tables is a kind of a powerful way that we can actually analyze data. You remember the queries we did last week, or the functions that we used where we did a sum? We can even do an average, and we kind of walk through a lot of those. Pivot tables will do this a lot easier and a lot quicker for you. So this is just another methodology. So if I highlight the entire table, I just do a shift and then an N down, and it highlights everything. If I go to insert, now instead of doing table, see it's grayed out because it's already a table, I can actually go to pivot table. So highlight that. And what I can do is I can actually take the pivot table and I can create it in a new worksheet, or I can do it in an existing. So I'm just going to go ahead and do an existing, because I'm just going to make it right next door here. So if I just click on that button right here, which is, and then just put my cursor wherever I want the table, and hit this again, and then OK, and now I have a pivot table. Now notice the pivot table fields here. This is what's really cool. Now we have, does this look familiar? First name, last name, salary? It should match the column headers, right? Now once I click out of the table, look at that, it's all gone. So if I want to click back in the table, I'm just clicking anywhere on the table, the fields come back. Yes, really. I think you're going to like this then. This is really powerful. So now what I can do is, what if I'm asked a question that says, hey, we want to be able to see what's the average salary for our entire company, Okay, so if I take the salary here and I just drop it into this thing called values here. Oh, actually, it's asking, how am I going to do this? Okay, if I do departments and then I do a salary. Let me go ahead and scroll over here. So notice here, now it actually says sum of salary. Well, we want average of salary, right? So if I do a click, all I'm doing is right-clicking on sum of salary. I go in the value field, and look at this. I can do a sum, I can do a count, I can do an average, a max, min, and everything. So let's do average salary by department. And there we go. So now if I do, all I did is highlight the entire column. I hit the $ here, and it just formats it nicely here. I take away, I can actually add decimals or I can subtract decimals simply by clicking these two buttons. So now we can see the salaries by departments, and I happen to have a lot of departments, right? And so if I want to say equals average, and let me just do this. I'm going to actually take the pivot table, do the average of this. Actually, it tells me right here. Whoops. If I go down to the last row in the table, right here, the 72,509, that's the average salary for everybody for the entire company. It breaks it down by department, and then the grand total will actually give me, for all departments, average salary 75. Really quick, isn't it? I don't have to remember how to do functions. All I have to do is know how to drag and drop. What if I want to do, I mean, then you can even do even more. And I know this is very discriminatory, but let's take average of age. So now I want to throw that, all I'm doing is dragging it down to values, and see how it has the little sum Greek sign here? So that's why
now is 1 o'clock, 28 of January,
now 2015. All I do here is, again, because it says it defaults to sum, I right click on the header, I do the value field settings, select, let's do the maximum age. So there we go. So now not only do I have average salary, but I also have what's the maximum age. We can highlight the pivot table, and sorting and let's see if I go. I thought I could sort, but it's not allowing me to sort. There's a way of doing this. It'll come to me in a sec here. Oh, here we go, sort. So I can do, let's do, all I did was right click on the age, click on the sort, and now it's going to ask me, do you want to go from smallest to largest or largest to smallest? Oops, it's doing salary. Interesting. Well, that didn't look good, did it? What the heck happened there? Huh. Control Z is our friend, because Control Z does undo on any Microsoft product, just in case you didn't know that. So if you make a mistake in any Microsoft, just Control Z. I wonder why. Okay, there we go. It's only allowing me to do, yeah. So the row labels, it's allowing me to sort by the row labels, but it's not allowing me to sort by field. So I'll figure that out in a little bit here. But anyway, I think you get the gist. Pretty powerful here. And then what's really nice is if I want to be able to pick a specific, so somebody says, well, hey, I want to, I'm only concerned about the English department. So I click on the down arrow here. I unselect all. It's in alphabetical order. I go down to English department. Then I go here and say, hey, look at that. English department's average is 63,000. Average age is 52 years old. Oh, but let's go ahead, and there's this thing with anthropology, English against the anthropology departments. Anthropology gets paid a lot more, and these are random numbers, by the way, so I don't know if it's true or false, but the average age is 48. So it looks like the older you get, the less you make in this company. Any questions so far with the pivot table? Not a true statement though, Emily. Not necessarily. I completely made these up. These numbers are just completely random. Okay, so now, okay, this is information, right? So now we're taking data and we're making information out of it. Let's take it one step further. Let's make it a little pretty here. So now let's go ahead and take let's go ahead and highlight the entire. So all I do is do the shift and down arrow key. I don't want to include this last field, so then I just do an up. I'm going to go ahead and do this. I mocked this up, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it up on my other page to make sure I do the same thing here. Okay. So then scroll up. So what I'm going to do here, so if I go to the insert, and you guys may be familiar with this as well, but I'm going to go ahead and do a bar graph. So let me go ahead and do, or a line graph. So this is pretty neat. So what we can do here now is looking at information. Again, we're taking information and we're making data out of it, right? So now we can see some trends in how the data, whoops, somehow, oh, okay, like that. All right, one moment, it kicked me out. Okay. I gotta resize it here. All right. Have you guys done line charts at all before, or graphs at all? Okay. Now keep in mind, this is going off the pivot table. And what's nice about the pivot table is I can control the data, right, or what goes in and out, specifically the average or whatever the trends are here. The reason why max age is not showing up is because I have my minimum set to 20,000 on my table. And of course, the average age is going to be less than 20,000. Oh, a long time ago. They are very much easier now. You know, we even look at programming and how much easier it is today. It's amazing. So what this does, now we have a chart, and this is really cool. If I click on the department, look at that. I can uncheck this. I can go to the anthropology. I can go to the English and select those, and then I can narrow it down. So now there we go. Now we have the average age. You can actually, for formatting, and again, this is kind of some really neat tricks, especially for your assignments here. If we go in here, we can do the format axis, and it's this over here. Kind of, let's go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and close the pivot table fields. So now we can see what we're on here. So now I have a maximum of $120,000 or $120,000 a year, right? Well, if I take, I can do these minor bands. Notice how it goes from 20 to 40 to 60. It's in 20,000 increments. What if I want to do 10 increments? Now it goes 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. So I can actually control the axes here simply by changing my numbers. So 5,000. Now I go from 5 to 10. See how that works? It's pretty cool. The other thing you can also do is you can right-click on this one, and you, well, actually, yep, and you can do a, hey, I want to be able to change my chart type. I don't like the line. It doesn't mean much to me. Let's go ahead and do a bar graph, and now we can change it to a bar graph. A little bit nicer, huh? one of the things also is it gets a little fuzzy down here, right? Even if I widen it a little bit, it's still kind of hard to read. So let's just ignore this bottom line here, and let's go ahead and right-click on the bar. I can actually add data labels. All I do is right-click on the bar, go to Add Data Labels, and there we go. Now it adds the values onto the bar. So now we know here's our 100,000, here's our 63,000 on average for English teachers. If I want to just see the age, I can actually right-click on this one, and I can actually say, hey, let's remove this field. And now I have my ages for anthropology and English. But here's the problem, right? That doesn't mean much to us, so we need to be able to reset our axes. So let's go ahead and right-click on the axes, Format. And remember, we have we want to take our major, our units. It's going by 5,000, and it's actually, so let's just go ahead and say 100 for a maximum, 0 for a minimum. So there, that's a little bit better. Right-click on it, add data labels. There we go. Now notice it's still in dollars because when it pulled the value from the other one, it actually took the what do you want to call it, the formatting. So, and you can mess around with this, and you can format the data series, and you can change it into numbers and so on. There's a way of doing that. I just kind of have to mess around with this a little bit, but so we can do number, so let's do this. And decimal points of 0. And there we go. So there's ways of doing it, okay? Is this kind of making sense at all? I mean, is there anything you picked up that you didn't know? Yeah, you can see how valuable this can be, right? Is there anything with tables or pivot tables that you want to explain a little bit further? Any clarification needed? I certainly don't mind. Yeah, it sure will be, Emily. One of the things to note, though, is remember I removed the field from the graph? Well, I also removed it from my pivot table. To get those back on, again, all I do is click anywhere on the pivot table, right-click, and I want to say show the field list, and there we go. It pops back up again. Well, we'll have you test this out during the week then, and then if you guys show up next office hours, we can certainly answer any questions you might have. If you want to add columns, all you do is just keep dragging them down. So now look at this. This is what's really cool about pivot tables. See how it has anthropology? I drag down the first name and the last name. Now it pulls in, hey, we know Darren and Seth are in anthropology. English contains Link, Travis, Timothy, and Weston. Click this one. And look at that. I got Darren Campbell, Seth Cox, and so on. One of the things I don't like about the modern pivot table is as I add fields, it keeps just layering them like this. So what I like to do is I'll right-click on this one. If I go into pivot table options and I go into the display tab, I'll do the classic pivot table and hit OK. And this looks much nicer. I'll show you what this is. Let me go ahead and close this out. So what this does then is it does these totals here, and all I do is uncheck them. And so there we go. Okay, just doing a little bit of formatting here. So basically now I say, now it shows anthropology over here, and then here's all the names within the department. So anthropology has Darren Campbell, Seth Cox, here's their average ages, and then you can see the average age per department, and then the average overall. So you keep adding to that, that's pretty cool, huh? I want to add. There you go. Pretty cool. And again, once I click out of the table, the fields go away. Click back in, they display again. Now what I could also do is I can, you can also make them to columns also. So I can say, this would add some value, but right now this shows, so Darren Campbell, department ID of 200, average age, he's in the anthropology department. Garcia, they're in English. There's value of doing it this way, especially if they're in multiple departments, if you're not doing average age. I mean, if you're doing, maybe you say, hey, I want to see what security access they have. Well, they have access to this system, but not this system. There's different uses for that. So you just kind of have to get creative and kind of play around with it. So let's see. The other one nice thing here is, let's say I have, so I have department name here. Again, every time I drop it in here, it puts a subtotal. All I do is right click on the total column, uncheck it, so that way the subtotals go away. If I want to do let's take department name and slide up to filters. Now look at this. Department name's up here. It's no longer down here, but if I click on the icon here, look at that. I can actually then select everything, and there you go. I can actually filter now based on department for the entire table. Yes, I could do it down here as well, but this allows me to control it at the overall table level. So it's another way of filtering it. So this one says all, and now we can just look down through here, and it's, well, look at what it does to pivot table. It's crazy. Obviously, we would have to clean that up, but every time you mess with the table, if that chart is tied to that pivot table, well, then it's going to react accordingly. So, all right. Let's see. I want to do some basic charting, some basic pivot tables. We showed you how to change the table types. Showed you how to change formatting on tables, which is really it's really simple now. Again, you can scroll through and see all the different designs. I mean, there's some really, that's pretty ugly ones. I don't know who defines these, but I mean, like, ugh. But if you go to the top, these are more standard, these kind of colors here. So, but hey, it's whatever you want, whatever floats the boat, right? Let's see. One nice thing about tables also, and this is what's really nice about, I don't know if you have 2013 or not. It's not showing it here. Huh. My one at work, if I hover next to the column, it'll actually add a column. Must be a setting. It's not on this one, but I use 2013 both at home and at work, but for some reason this one's not behaving the same. Anyway, I was going to show you a cool feature, but that's not. Here's another nice thing about Excel. A lot of times we can be limited, right, to just a column width. So let's say I do, say, School of the Gifted and the Brave. Okay. Well, I'll take away periods to habit. Okay, now notice how it actually goes off the field. It goes beyond it. We can do here, and again, you might know this, but this is for people who might be watching also the video. So I'm on the field. Actually, if I click right here, do the whole column and do wrap text, it automatically wraps your text now, so it keeps it nice and clean. Again, I'm just kind of showing you some neat things about how to make presentation of data so it's really clean, because a lot of times that's everything, right? I mean, if I'm giving a report to somebody, we certainly want to have it look clean so it's readable. If I look at the entire table here, I can actually select this. Actually, I'm going to scroll to the top. So notice how these are kind of like sitting on the bottom. This is kind of like taking up the entire field. If I do click this one right here, which is actually middle align, it just brings everything so it's centered within the actual text boxes. That's all that is. So just some neat things. So any questions on anything you I want to show you one more thing that you can do with these tables too, and then we'll wrap it up. But just want to see if you had any other questions related to what I've covered so far with the basic features of a table or pivot table. Nope. Okay. All right. One of the neat features, there's also what we call conditional formatting. Okay. So if I say I want to see everybody who's making over $100,000, I can actually highlight the field, do an end down, so I got all the fields covered. Let's do a data. Hold please. Okay, sorry, it's just under the home one. It kind of changed things up a little bit when we went over to 13. So, all right, so if I do conditional reporting, I can actually enter a new rule. So I can say, I have all these different rules I can do. Format all cells based on their values, format all cells that contain, and so on. A lot of times I just use a formula to determine which cells to format. So if I say equals greater than 100,000, I can actually set a format that says I'm going to do a fill. Let's go ahead and do a red. I'm going to do a font that is a white. And let's do bold. Okay, so if the condition becomes true, then it puts it with a red background with white lettering on it. U-type equals 1 plus 1 plus 2. I had to put a this is why I wasn't prepared on this one. This is one of those things you're supposed to have done ahead of time. Let me do conditional formatting one more time here. Let's do new rule. Cell value is greater than, or I'm going to cheat. Okay, and do a format. Do a white format, bold, fill, red. Okay, think that's going to work? Drum roll. Here we go. So now I have conditional formatting. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll do conditional formatting based on standard deviations above and below the norm. I know a lot of you guys are going to be in, I think you're in analytics, right? Program? Are either one of you in the analytics program? Nope. Oh, okay. Well, we're starting a new program at UST for analytics, and I know as you're even accounting, right? We'll take a standard deviation, like 2 standard deviations above the norm. Basically, what that says is, hey, I want to find any outliers. So if my average salary is, 70,000, but I got some people making 120,000, I want to see who those are. So we look for outliers. We can do conditional formatting on that, so it automatically just highlights it. So as I add more and more data, that because I've highlighted all these table cells, it'll just maintain that conditional formatting until I remove it. So any new records that get added to this table will also fall into that conditional formatting as well. So, but pretty cool, huh? Makes it really stand out nicely. So, I know this is what we call the geeky cool. So, start getting impressed by stuff like this. Ugh, I might need to get a life. Excellent. Well, that's kind of why I wanted to show you guys tonight, unless you have any other questions, or if you have any questions related to the chapter or the quiz or anything like that. Like I said, that's what I'm here for. Excellent. Do either one of you have anything cool that you've done with Excel that you wanted to share with your colleagues that I could demonstrate, or are we good for tonight? Yeah, we're going to end up having a couple more weeks of kind of Excel. We're going to kind of keep expanding our knowledge with Excel, and nothing cool. Oh, okay, but helpful though, right? Don't underestimate the power of a good table. Oh, okay, excellent. So the next couple of weeks we'll continue on expanding our knowledge, getting a little bit more tricky with our Excel spreadsheets, and then we're going to actually then migrate into Access. And so we'll start teaching about databases and making simple databases and normalizing data and so on, and then we'll eventually get into actually doing SQL through SQL Server. So you take data and make tables into Excel. Okay. And do you are these like online reports or spreadsheets that you have to distribute, or so you do parts manuals? Oh, it'll be a piece of cake. Just like Katie was saying, it's gotten a lot easier. So, oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do with Excel. You can make things look pretty nice, right? So we'll talk about creating navigation pages and so on. And eventually the final presentation will actually show you how you connect to external data. Key is not to teach you all in one night. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I had for you guys. So unless you have any other questions, I really want to thank you for attending tonight. Excellent. Good night. Yep, I will. Thank you.
discussing a real-life business scenario that we can all relate to. Guests at Walt Disney World were experiencing long lines, which limited the amount of rides, shops and restaurants that customers could visit. To solve this issue, Disney enhanced customer satisfaction and spending by using information system to spot gridlock and improve crowd flow. Disney implemented an operational command center to use cameras, digital maps, and mobile apps to monitor attendance, registers, and spot and prevent gridlock. This solution demonstrated information technology's role in increasing value and revenue in a business. This also illustrates the potential for technology to improve customer experience. An amusement park is like any other business. It needs to make investments in information technologies to run efficient and effective operations.
So how do information systems transform business? We can do this through emerging mobile digital platforms, growing business use of big data, or we could grow our cloud computing. Some of the globalization opportunities include the internet, which has drastically reduced the cost of operating on a global scale, and the increase of foreign trade, i.e. outsourcing. Both presents challenges and opportunities. To kind of put this in context, new federal security and accounting laws that require companies to store email for 5 years, for example, have spurred the growth of digital information. This is increasing at a rate of about 5 exabytes annually. You might be surprised to learn that 5 exabytes of data is equivalent to about 37,000 libraries of Congress. Think about what difference it makes to the world economy with this kind of growth, or even the U.S. economy. If global operations become if global operations become much less expensive, what are the challenges to American suppliers of goods and services, and to labor? Total investments is more than $1 trillion in 2012, and more than $540 billion of that was invested in information technology. Why is it that the percentage of total investment devoted to information technology has increased so much since 1980? Other kinds of capital investments could include machinery and buildings. Why would firms increase information technology investment faster than machineries and buildings? The answer can be that capital substitution, the price of information technology capital, has been falling exponentially, whereas the price of machines and buildings has been growing at slightly more than the rate of inflation. Wherever possible, firms would much rather invest more in IT than in machinery or buildings because the returns on investments are much greater. In the emerging fully digital firm, significant businesses relationships are digitally enabled and mediated. Core business processes are accomplished through digital networks, and key corporate assets are managed digitally. Basically what this is saying is that we can communicate via a lot of electronics such as webinars, Skype, and other communication technologies. Internet, we have different kinds of internet capabilities. And also digital firms offer greater flexibility in organization and management through time shifting and space shifting. Time shifting and space shifting are connected to globalization. So I ask you, why are digital firms more likely to benefit from globalization than a traditional firm? One answer is that by allowing businesses to be conducted at any time, which is also known as time shifting, and any place, also known as space shifting, digital firms can ideally be suited for global operations which take place in remote locations and very different time zones. I know being in information technology, we deal a lot with overseas, specifically India. There's a lot of outsourcing that happens over there, and time is greatly different. I believe they are about 8 hours time difference. And so as we're getting off for the day, they still don't start their morning until about 9 o'clock our time at night. At least that was in Central Time. So we would have representatives from our organization when we're dealing with offshore coming at 9 o'clock to make a morning phone call. So they're coming at 9 o'clock at night to make a morning call in India and hand off the work. But the availability of us being able to call them or do webinars over that great distance greatly improves our ability to deliver a comprehensive and flexible product to our customers. We talk about a growing interdependence between the ability to use information technology and the ability to implement corporate strategies to achieve the corporate goals. Business firms invest heavily in information systems to achieve 6 of the strategic business objectives. The first would be operational excellence. Second, new products, services, and business models. The third would be customer and supplier intimacy. 4, improved decision making, competitive advantages, and finally, survival. So how do the various information systems succeed or fail in achieving the 6 strategic business objectives? Think about some other business objectives and think about how IT might help a firm achieve them. For instance, how about if we consider speed to market, which is very important to firms introducing new products? How can IT help achieve that objective? The basic point of this graphic is that in order to achieve its business objectives, a firm will need to have significant investment in information technology. Going the other direction, from right to left, having a significant IT platform can lead to changes in business objectives and strategies. This is a two-way nature of this relationship. Businesses rely on the information systems to help them achieve their goals. A business without adequate information systems will inevitably fall short. But information systems are also products of the businesses that use them. Businesses can shape their information systems, and information systems also can shape a business. So we talk about operational excellence. And one of the things that comes to mind is Walmart. Walmart is the most efficient retailer in the industry and exemplifies operational excellence. Can you name other businesses that you believe can exhibit a high level of operational excellence? Do customers perceive operational excellence? Does it make a difference for customers when purchasing? And what websites really strikes you as being really excellent in terms of customer service? So we talk about operational excellence. We look at the improvement of efficiency to attain a higher profitability. I think Walmart can get products at a very low price, but they also sell in bulk, which allows them to have much more profit. Information systems, technology, is an important tool in achieving a greater efficiency and productivity. And also, Walmart's retail link system links suppliers to stores for superior replenishment systems. Have you ever shopped at walmart.com and said, ship to my store? Those requests go directly to a supplier who then ships directly to a store so you can pick up at your convenience. And they can do this because they can have the inventory systems tied to a supplier systems and vice versa. So allows customers to be able to be much more flexible in where they can buy and when they can buy. When we look at new products, services, and business models, we understand that information systems and technology is a major enabling tool for new products, services, and business models. For example, Apple's iPad, Google's Android OS, and Netflix. Can you name any other new products or business models that you have encountered? And if so, how do they relate to new information systems or new technology? We can think of examples such as green technologies, such as wind, solar, hybrid vehicles. These are always kind of fun topics. How does IT play in the development of these technologies? It used to be that a windmill was just simply 3-4 arms that spin in the wind and generate electricity, but now they're fully automated where they can be controlled from great distances. If you look at a more dark topic, we look at droids who are going into combat where men aren't risked. At least men on our side aren't risked. How does IT play a role in that? If we look at customer and supplier intimacy, serving customers well leads to customers returning, right? Which raises revenues and profits. So example would be a high-end hotel that uses computers to track customer preferences and also is used to monitor and customize the environment for their guests. Intimacy with suppliers allows them to provide vital inputs which lower costs. Another example would be JCPenney's information system, which links sales records to contract manufacturers. So what type of companies might rely more on customer and supplier intimacy more than others? And which companies do you believe serve them exceptionally well? How about identifying online sites that achieve a high degree of customer intimacy? Can you think of any? So if we look at maybe a site like Netflix or Amazon or other sites which have recommender systems, we can get a good example. You go on to Netflix and they know which movies you've watched, and so they have recommendations based on what you've watched in the past. Same with Amazon. They have recommendations for what to buy based on your previous buying patterns. That's all creating a level of intimacy. It basically shows that, hey, we know what you like, and so therefore we're going to try to give you products that will really help you going forward. Information systems also improve decision making. Because without accurate information, managers must use forecasts or best guesses, which mainly is just luck. This can result in overproduction or underproduction of materials. Could be a misallocation of resources or poor response times. Inevitably, poor outcomes, raise costs, and lose customers. So an example would be Verizon's web-based digital dashboard, which provides managers with real-time data on customer complaints, network performance, line outages, and so on. Have you ever been the recipient of an exceptional service from a company made possibly by improved decision making? And whether or not the information systems contributed to that level of service, do you think they played a role? So for example, we can look at maybe you had a power outage and it took a very short or very long time for the utility company to correct the error. We talk about power outages. There's a response time, as you know, and the faster a company can bring up the electricity for a neighborhood, the better the customer satisfaction is. Nobody wants it in the dark, obviously. That's a given. But at the same time, we don't think about how much information technology plays into identifying power outages and also enabling how to reroute systems to bring power back online quicker while the main lines are maybe being replaced or repaired. So information systems also can help companies with a competitive advantage. Allows companies to deliver better performance, charging less for superior products, and then responding to customers and suppliers in real time. Examples again would be Apple, Walmart, or UPS. Achieving any of the previous 4 business objectives that we talked about earlier represents the achievement of a competitive advantage as well. I remember the days when we couldn't work in real time. Everything was static. And I don't know if any of you would remember this, but when we talked about websites, we talked about displaying reports to end users, which was really big in the day. And I would say this probably goes back to early 90s, 92, 93, where we could deliver reports in the banking industry back to customers, even a statement. But it can never be in real time because if somebody made a purchase during the day, that didn't reflect until we ran our processes overnight to be able to update our information. And the reason being is that information took so long to process through that we couldn't do it in real time. Now we're getting at that point, obviously, where you make a purchase and within seconds, if not minutes, you can see that purchase on your account right away. So the faster organizations can respond to customers' needs, the better competitive advantage they'll provide. And finally, the survival one. Information technologies are a necessity of businesses, right? The industry level changes, for example, Citibank's introduction of ATMs, governmental regulations requiring record keeping. The examples would be the Toxic Substances Control Act or the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Can you name any examples of companies that have failed to survive due to their unwillingness or inability to update their information systems? When we look at the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, this requires that the public firms keep all data, including email, on record for at least 5 years. And can you appreciate why information systems would be useful toward meeting these standards imposed by this legislation? Why would we need to keep information for 5 years, including email? It's basically set to protect an organization. But the fact that we have that ability to store information for 5 or more years, I mean, can you think of the transactions, for instance, that banking goes through? All the transactions, all the purchase histories, all the debit card uses, all that information has to be kept for a quite extensive period of time. If you look at each individual user, that amount of information is not very much. But you take that over millions of customers, and that amount of information can grow greatly. But as we expand our technology abilities, the costs of providing that kind of data gets much cheaper. You can also look at maybe phone companies. When I first got a cell phone, my goodness, that was 1988, I think. And I actually went I was in college, and I was trying to think about, every time I made a call, it was 25 cents a minute to make that call. Of course, hardly anybody had phones. And now we look at, when we use phones, I can make unlimited amount of calls. I can make an unlimited amount of transactions and so on, and not be charged anything more than what my base rate is. Organizations such as Verizon and T-Mobile and all them are now charging, for the most part, for just data. So if I'm going to do large amounts of streaming of data, that's where I can get zinged. But I also assume that within a very near future, I know Sprint has found out a way that they can provide unlimited data, and I'm assuming that the other companies will as well. And I think they'll need to for their survival. So we look at information systems. If we look at a system, can refer to a set of components that work together, hopefully. Can you think of systems other than information systems? The point of an information system is to make sense out of all the confusing data in the environment and put that data into some kind of order. Information is an ordered set of data that you can understand and act on. So if we want to take you on a quick little tour here, example would be so we look at the Yahoo stock market, right? So in itself, each transaction of a stock would be, just information, but or just data. But we present like a grid like this that shows, the Dow Jones Industrial Average and how it's presenting over time throughout the day. This becomes information. It's something that we can deal with.
This diagram illustrates the distinction between information and data. Data is just a presentation of numbers and text. However, information systems can take data and create information. Information is a meaning representation of data such as total unit sales of dish detergent or the total sales revenues from dish detergent for a specific store or sales territory.
So there are 3 activities of information systems that produce information that organizations need. That would be input, which captures the raw data from organizations or external environments. The processing, which converts the raw data into meaningful form. and the output, which transfers the processed information to people or activities that use it.
Dr. Anderson, please let me explain this one. If we look at a list of students with their ages, we would classify this information as input. When we calculate the average, maximum, and minimum ages, we classify those calculations as processing. The display of the input and processing is termed as output. Think as output as a report or an online report displayed to a user.
Thanks, Heather. When we look at feedback, its output is returned to appropriate members of an organization to help evaluate the correct input stage. The computer or the computer program versus information systems. Computers and software are technical foundations and tools, similar to materials and tools used to build a house. So if we look at the analogy of how a house works, assuming that the successful information system is like a completed house, computers and softwares only represent the tools and materials used to build that house. The tools and materials don't just suddenly become a completed house. Outside or human input is required. The systems need to be designed to fit the firms and the humans who work within those systems. The point of this diagram is first of all to highlight the three basic activities of information systems so that you understand what an information system is doing at its most fundamental level. The diagram also puts information systems into the context of organizations, i.e. firms, and then puts the firm into the respective environment composed of shareholders, higher level authorities such as government, competitors, suppliers, and customers. You should also see that information systems play a central role, mediating and interacting with all of these players. Hence, the systems play a key role in the operations and survival of a firm. These three themes, management, organization, and technology, will reappear throughout the book. Understanding the interaction among these factors in information systems is known as information system literacy. Knowing how to optimize the relationship between the technology, organizations, and management is the purpose of this book and this course. So looking at this slide, using information system effectively requires an understanding of the organization, management, and information technology shaping the systems. An information system creates value for the firm as an organizational and management solutions to challenges posed by the environment. So we look at organization dimensions and information systems. If we look at the hierarchy of authority and responsibility within an organization, we can see that senior, middle, and operational management, in addition to knowledge workers, data workers, and production or service workers. The highlight means absolutely nothing. I accidentally highlighted it and I can't get it off my slide, so I apologize for that. If we look at page 18 and 19 in the text, it will provide more specific details of each levels of the hierarchy. But can you think about an organization where you currently work or have worked in the past? What was your contact with the senior management, middle management, and operational or supervisory management? Many of you may not have had experience with working with senior managements, but maybe some of you have. So we look at knowledge worker. A knowledge worker is a person whose job involves handling or using information. And operations management is an area of management concerned with overseeing, designing, and controlling the process of production, and redesigning the business operations in the production of goods and services. When we think about middle managers, they are the managers in an organization at a level just below that of the senior administrators. And senior management or senior administrators, executive management, or management team is generally a team of individuals at the highest level of organizational management who have the day-to-day responsibilities of managing the company or corporation. So here's the different levels of the firm using a triangular representation. So business organizations are basic hierarchies consisting of three principal levels: the senior, middle, and operational management. Information systems serves each of these levels. Scientists and knowledge workers often work with the middle management area. Think about how information systems would factor into the day-to-day jobs of each of the three types of workers in the pyramid. If we look at organizational dimensions of information systems, there's a separation of business functions, such as sales and marketing, human resources, finance and accounting, manufacturing and production. Each one has unique business processes, unique business cultures, and organizational politics. There are many organizational factors that will shape the information systems. A common observation is that every business is different. Does this mean that every business will have a different information system? Every business has its unique culture and politics. Systems can reflect these business cultures. For an example of how information systems shed light on a firm's unique business processes and culture, we'll go ahead and look at the UPS interactive session coming up here. And we'll look at the company's packaging and tracking systems to exemplify their commitment to customer service and putting the customer first. When we look at the management dimensions of information systems, managers set the organizational strategy for responding to business challenges. In addition, managers must act creatively, creating new products and services, and occasionally recreating the organization. When we talk about recreating an organization, let's think about what an organization looks like if they've built their own systems within house. For example, in ERP, a lot of times organizations will try to build those themselves, and it eventually just keeps growing as people keep adding on to it. But then it starts getting to the point where it starts becoming inefficient, and a decision needs to be made if an organization wants to eventually maybe integrate a ERP system that's where basically from an outside provider. They would have to replace their internal stuff. The internal stuff is really called a legacy system. It's in-house, it's grown, and it's been around for a while. It's typically what a legacy system is defined as. Leaders, when they start evaluating how effective their information systems are in running the business, they need to determine whether the existing systems are truly working and creating efficiencies, or whether or not the organization is spending a lot of time and money just maintaining and keeping them afloat, as you will. So a lot of times they'll have to occasionally recreate the organization by implementing a new strategy or new programs. In this case, an enterprise relationship processing system to handle the processes within the organization. The other thing we need to keep in mind when we talk about managers acting creatively, they also have to act responsibly. A lot of times information systems are implemented because it's something a manager has on their agenda. They want to be able to get a specific system in-house because it's something they're familiar with, even if it's not effective for the current organization. So there needs to be some checks and balances before implementing information systems. We will in this class talk about return on investment, which is if we're going to spend a certain amount of money on an information system, we need to be able to get money back, right? It needs to pay for itself. Otherwise, it just costs money and it's not generating profitability for the organization. Technology dimensions of information systems include computer hardware and software, data management technology, network and telecommunication technology, which includes networks, internet, intranet, extranets, and the World Wide Web. And finally, IT infrastructure, which provides a platform that the system is built on. It's kind of important to understand the different terms here. When we talk about intranet versus internet, the intranet is typically the same thing as a World Wide Web, but it contained within an organization. So it's a site that's built inside the walls of the organization, and typically you don't get outside the intranet. It contains information that all the employees have access to, but nobody from the outside can get access to. And so a lot of secure documents can be stored in intranets, but again, the navigating is much similar as the internet. The internet, as we know, is certainly information can be obtained from any source as long as you have access and permissions. That's why we implement usernames and passwords, but we can access anything that's on the internet if we have permission to do so. And finally, the extranet. It's much like an intranet, but it's an information system that's built within the organization, but multiple locations within the organization can access it. So if you have an office in Philadelphia and one in Minneapolis, both sets of employees, both at Minneapolis and in Philadelphia, can access the extranet. It's just one level of security that has to be opened up, so it allows multiple sources, but you're typically on the same framework, so you can access these systems within your organization, even if they are at different locations.
That concludes part 1 of the Chapter 1 lecture. Please locate part 2 to complete the lecture. As always, please post any questions in the instructor discussion forum in the course.